The Late Show Live, every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British Airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for your company. Live from Washington, D.C. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
It's amazing, you know, the word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff. True, but then I got a lot of heat from the fake news. Look at all of them back there.
Well, so much for being an ally, eh? President Trump turns on Britain. Shockwaves reverberate all across the UK tonight as President Trump unleashes his wrath, leaving Sir Keir Starmer squarely in the firing line. Accusing the UK and Europe of playing a dangerous game, the President imposes a new set of tariffs as retaliation for rebelling against his plans to annex Greenland.
We are not interested in being Americans.
Have Greenland to the Greenlandic and not for the United States.
Elsewhere on the ground in Denmark, Make America Go Away. Those are the placards filling the streets as protesters gather in opposition to the president's plans. But tonight, is Donald Trump really the only leader who truly understands what's at risk globally? Also tonight.
We are devastated, we are heartbroken because we haven't heard from our family in Iran for like a week now. We don't know what's going on, if they're alive or not.
Thousands of protesters continue to gather outside the Iranian embassy in London tonight. That was after the chaos last night where police got a little bit heavy-handed with protesters. And it comes as the Islamic Republic's supreme leader lashes out today at President Trump, accusing him, Donald Trump, of being responsible for the thousands of deaths of protesters in Iran.
Trump! Trump!
No peace this side of the pond either, unfortunately. Anti-immigration enforcement demonstrations continue to rage nationwide, and now the Department of Justice has taken a major step in response. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning. Thank you for your company. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel, political commentator Hilary Fordwich and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith, and in London to take us through what's making the newspaper front pages is the head of media at the Institute for Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. Hello Reem, thank you for your company. We'll be with you fairly shortly. Right, let's move on to the one story doing the rounds all across the world this morning. President Trump has announced a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the US from Britain, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Finland on February the 1st in response to the European rebellion against allowing the US to take over Greenland for, quote, national security purposes. So this morning, Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago, the Winter White House in Florida, he woke up, he grabbed his phone and he took to Truth Social. He wrote, "It's time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there's not a thing Denmark can do about it. Only the United States of America, under President Donald J. Trump, can play this game. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security and survival of our planet. Strong measures must be taken so this perilous situation ends. Tariffs will remain until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland." And tonight, these shockwaves are being felt from that statement. Sir Keir Starmer has described the action as completely wrong, adding that our position on Greenland is very clear. It's part of the Kingdom of Denmark and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. Applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration. By the way, just as an off note from that, I'm glad to see the Prime Minister now thinks that the future of any sovereign nation should be decided by the very people of those sovereign nations, except I guess when it comes to Keir Starmer, the Chagossians and the Chagos Islands. But we move on. Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, has said President Trump is completely wrong to announce tariffs on the UK over Greenland. People in both the UK and US will face higher costs. These tariffs will be yet another burden for businesses across the country. The sovereignty of Greenland should only be decided by the people of Greenland. On this, I agree with Keir Starmer. Nigel Farage also weighed in today. He said, "We don't always agree with the US government, and in this case, we certainly don't. These tariffs will hurt us. If Greenland is vulnerable to malign influences, then have another look at Diego Garcia." And of course, Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader, well, he needed no invitation to get involved. He said Starmer's US policy lies in tatters. Trump is now punishing the UK and NATO allies just for doing the right thing. Time for the PM to stand firm against the bully in the White House and work with European and Commonwealth allies to make him back down from this reckless plan. Well, interesting, isn't it? Look, the tariffs come in on the 1st of February. I personally don't think they will be enforced. I think this is President Trump trying to turn the screw. It will be bad for Britain. It will be bad for British businesses. But suddenly, and I think it's quite ironic, suddenly, particularly the left, they all care now about borders, don't they? And British taxpayers being stung in the wallet. And I posted earlier, on X, it would be nice if those people whining today about President Trump, and they're justified to complain about it, it would be nice if they had the same anger and the same frustration with the likes of Emmanuel Macron and France, who are sending 40,000 illegal small boat migrants into Britain each and every day. No concern about our borders there or British taxpayers being stunned there. Anyway, we move on. Joining me in Washington to discuss this is my panel, Hilary Fordwich and Mally Smith. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
Wow, it's going to be a very busy night. It's going to be an explosive night.
Yes.
Who to go to first? Hilary, I'll go ladies first. What's your take on all this?
Well, actually, this is one of the things. Just take a step back for a second. Could you imagine saying to a British taxpayer, a Dutch taxpayer, German taxpayer, Swedish taxpayer, Norwegian taxpayer, by the way, we want you to give 5% of your GDP to defend the US southern border? They'd all be like, well, this is absolutely ridiculous. Why should we defend the US southern border? Whereas American taxpayers have been paying for NATO for all these years. And to that extent, President Trump is completely correct. NATO would be nothing without all that the US has done for so many years. And I will say that Denmark isn't capable of defending Greenland. They really aren't. And with all those rare earth minerals, with the now impending threat from China, the impending threat from Russia, you do know that they don't have the icebreakers that they need. You do know that the Russians have them, that the Chinese have them. I think this is definitely, it's national security for the West, and basically the US is NATO. And I think that it's a great pity that European nations that have been heavily subsidized and protected by the US for so many years don't appreciate and see this as a massive Western issue, not just a US issue. Unfortunately, Denmark isn't capable. And I do think, even though 92% of those Greenlanders supposedly don't want to become Americans, I think when they're offered the range is supposedly between 100,000 and 500,000 each, they might change their minds. And jobs, jobs, jobs when all those rare earth minerals might be mined, which the Danes have also failed to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think that's what this is about, Mally. This is about rare earth minerals, ultimately. If China gets hold of those rare earth minerals on Greenland, which they can't be extracted just yet because, as I understand, they're so deep in the ice. But if they do get hold of those rare earth minerals, they will control something like 99% of the world's entire technology production process.
Yeah, I certainly think there are strategic reasons that we should have Greenland close to the United States. I think the question, though, is if this is the best way to go about it. Greenland with Denmark are members of NATO. I think there are ways we can strengthen the security bond there. Indirectly, President Trump is strengthening the security bond because we have the UK and other countries sending military officers there to help. But to me, the issue I have is I feel like if there was a world, Ben, where Greenlanders said, you know, we really want to join the U.S., right? And there was that pre-existing political will to do that, I would say let's explore this. But if you look at the political reality here, the majority of Americans do not think we should get Greenland. It really jumps up to 70 to 80% when you ask them if we should militarily take Greenland.
Yeah.
The majority of Greenlanders.
I mean, so I'm surprised the 20% is so high, actually. I don't think anyone would support. I don't know anybody who would. I mean, would you support Hillary military seizure of Greenland?
No, I think if you want to understand this entire situation also, just read the art of the deal. President Trump is going in really hard, really strong, and there will be some kind of compromise and pullback. And to your point earlier, Ben, when you said you don't think he'd really will implement the tariffs, I think that he does what he says he's going to do. I think it's a realistic threat, but I think it's enough to bring those Europeans that have depended on us for NATO to their knees.
So the situation is we have 70% of Americans oppose this, Greenlanders oppose this, our European allies oppose this, and even Republican elected officials who rarely show any sort of pushback to President Trump have said it's impeachment worthy if we pursue military action. So to me, it's how do we pursue a relationship with Greenland that strengthens their security needs, that helps us economically, and I do not think this is the way to go about it.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I understand President Trump's ambitions and why he wants to take Greenland or purchase Greenland, but as we were saying off air, I think the traditional bluster of President Trump and the way he goes about certain things, sometimes it's great, sometimes it works, but I think on this occasion you've seen from the streets of Denmark everybody rallying together, you've got all the European nations rallying together. It's actually brought Europe and NATO, or the sort of European NATO contributors, a lot closer together.
And let them step up and pay their 5%. And by the way, don't forget, only the UK and Poland ever even paid their 3%.
Yeah.
Well, and also, too, if we get to the point where, again, it seems very highly unlikely we would take military action, but we took military action or we forced some sort of mechanism for us to take over Greenland, we're going to take over this country where they're on the streets and don't want us there. That just seems like a tinderbox of nothing good.
Well, actually, one thing that I don't know if President Trump has thought about, it's kind of like when he was talking about Canada. The problem would be if we actually did overtake Greenland and Canada, don't forget they'd all be Democrats. So he'd have more Democrats in Congress to battle against.
In that sense, I'm completely supportive if we have more
going to be really happy about this.
Here's a pledge for the Late Show Live, right? I will take on any bet, any dare, you know, running down the street naked, whatever, if the US invades Greenland and seizes it militarily. It will never happen.
No.
Reem Ibrahim is down the line from London, the head of media at the Institute for Economic Affairs. Reem, what's your thoughts? And I'm not talking about dares for me. What about Greenland and the tariffs?
Well, I do think running around naked does sound like a great dare, Ben. Well, what's interesting about this is people are talking about the tariffs specifically, and obviously when we're talking about tariffs, we were talking about taxes. They do not just hurt the UK and other European countries, but they do also, of course, hurt American consumers. Tariffs are not good for anybody, and I don't think that they actually will be implemented. I'm not really sure why we're talking about military action. That wasn't on the table at all. What Trump is doing is clearly it's a bit of negotiation. It's a negotiation tactic. Something will land in the middle, and ultimately it's up to the people of Greenland to decide. If I was in Greenland, I would almost certainly rather be an American. More free speech, lower taxes, more growing economy, more job opportunities. It is almost certainly a better deal. We'll have to see. Only time will tell. I almost certainly do think, though, that these tariffs won't end up being implemented, and some kind of deal will become.
I don't think they will either.
I
don't think they'll be implemented either. The military action has come into play, Reem, though, because President Trump himself said we can do this the easy way, or the hard way. He said that Denmark has no defence. He said their only defence is 2 dog sledges, I think, 2 dog sledges, of one of which they recently purchased. So, I mean, he is the one who has been talking about military action, even though I don't think it will happen.
No, I don't think military action will actually occur. I mean, what's interesting about this is, the sort of domestic political situation in the US would almost actually not allow it. What I find fascinating is the response from a lot of European and British leaders, of course. What we have seen is, for example, the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, coming out in agreement with Sir Keir Starmer, saying this is not a good move. They sort of were all attempting to come across as though they are headstrong. But what is interesting is that none of them, if this was to go to military action, would be able to defend themselves. The Americans have a bigger military, they have actual, genuine public spending in the military, and unfortunately, the reality is the Europeans and indeed the people of Greenland do not have governments that are even able to defend themselves, and I think that's a very scary feat.
Yeah, and I think that was Hillary's point here. I think that is Trump's point as well. I think he's saying, OK, I'm going to slap you guys with these tariffs. You're not playing ball. We need it for the safety of the United States and the world. Otherwise, what are you going to do about it? I don't think he ever would, as I keep repeating myself, get involved with that. But Hillary, is that not your point?
Well, yes, and he's actually said in there something about basically they have 2 dog sleds to defend. They really can't defend Greenland. They haven't exploited all those rare earth minerals. They're sitting literally on a gold mine of rare earth minerals and other very precious resources that the Greenlanders just have never, ever leveraged, exploited or used. And in terms of national defence, just think about those Greenlanders. They would be safer, more secure, more jobs, better standard of living.
Well, they would, but
apparently
they don't want to. They're not interested. I think polls suggest they're just not interested.
That's true, but give them 100,000 to $500,000 each, and I think they might.
$500,000 would probably do it. But my question, Reem, as well is the most of the Greenlanders, they're not Danes. They're, I think, by descent, they're sort of Inuits, sort of Eskimo.
Mixture, I think
Eskimo people.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they have such an allegiance to Denmark anyway.
Well, of course, there is the historic link here. I do wonder if this entire situation will finally give Europeans and indeed perhaps even Greenland the sort of kick up the backside that they need to expand their military spending. I mean, I'm a libertarian where I don't like taxpayer money being spent on different things. But what I find fascinating is that the entirety of Europe have seen what has happened where Russia invaded Ukraine and have not fully expanded their militaries. In the UK, if we were invaded, we would not be able to defend ourselves. I think that's extraordinarily scary, and I hope this situation gets politicians to actually do something about it.
Yeah, and actually, J.D. Vance's speech last year, I can't remember where it was, maybe it was in Munich, where he said it's not good for Europe to be the permanent security vassal of the United States, and he was calling for Europe to pull itself up by its bootstraps, stop relying on the United States. So maybe in some weird way, that's what the US is doing here. They're trying to prove to Europe and the UK, look, we currently run things. We are NATO. You are not good enough to stand on your own 2 feet. So maybe it's just some sort of weird warning shot.
And it isn't fair
we'll see what happens in the next couple of months.
It isn't fair to expect American taxpayers to continue protecting the entirety of the West. I don't think that's fair, and I think lots of Europeans will wake up to that fact.
Yeah, well said, Reem. As I keep saying, I think it's mass hypocrisy for people to be banging on now about Greenland and President Trump, especially those of the left persuasion, when Keir Starmer has been giving away the Chagos Islands without even consulting the Chagossians, who want to go home. They're all in Crawley, in West Sussex. They want to go home to Chagos, but yeah, that's another conversation. 2 tick here. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live.
We are devastated, we are heartbroken because we haven't heard from our family in Iran for like a week now. We don't know what's going on, if they're alive or not.
The latest scenes from outside the Iranian embassy in London as protests continue, and the Supreme Leader in Iran levels it's outrageous actually, an accusation against President Trump, accusing him of being responsible for protester deaths. We're also hearing some more breaking news this evening coming out of Iran, which we'll bring you shortly, and if verified and confirmed, it will shock you as well. But also tonight,
We are not interested in being Americans.
Have Greenland to the Greenlandic and not for the United States.
Well, President Trump's bluster has done one thing, and that's unite the Danes and Europe. Protests erupt all across Denmark tonight with one message ringing out: make America go away. But why is Greenland suddenly at the centre of a global power struggle? I'll reveal what's really driving this in just a sec. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
That's that.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's amazing, you know, the word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff. True, but then I got a lot of heat from the fake news. Look at all of them back there.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. No fake news in sight this evening. Let's return to that main story, making shockwaves all across the world. President Trump has threatened tariffs against countries failing to back his seizure of Greenland. Rallies and marches off the back of this outside the US Embassy in Copenhagen saw banners being waved, lots of them declaring hands off Greenland, others saying MAGA, as in Make America Go Away, not great again. But the big question is, why is Greenland suddenly at the centre of a global power struggle?
We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
So look, Greenland obviously is massive. It's the world's largest island. It has considerable untapped mineral wealth, lots of rare earth. I think it's home to about 60 to 70% of rare earth in the world, lots of it trapped in the ice, which is still yet to be retrieved. Alongside that, significant oil and gas reserves as well. And of course, that's something that both Russia and China would love to get their hands on. And I found this announcement this morning from President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. As I said, he woke up at Mar-a-Lago, got his phone, posted this on Truth Social, because it came just 24 hours after Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, was in China, cozying up to President Xi, hailing Beijing as a more reliable partner than the United States, even hinting that the country belongs to a, quote, new world order.
Mine is the first visit of a Canadian Prime Minister to China in nearly a decade. The world has changed much since that last visit. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
The new Chinese and Canadian world order coming your way. Brace yourself for it. Joining me in Washington is geopolitical expert Kate Jones. Kate, good evening. Thank you for your company in the Late Show Live studio. Lots of people asking today why all of a sudden Greenland is on the agenda, but it's not suddenly, because the US has wanted Greenland since, I think, the 1800s, haven't it?
Well, sure, but it's more pressing right now because of hypersonic missile defense. So the hypersonic weapon systems, obviously their radar for those, it is in Greenland. So missile defense systems are going to be operating out of there. They are high-speed Mach 5 missiles. And the rare earth minerals that are in deposits in Greenland, there's samarium cobalt, and that is used in hypersonic weapons. It's used in the fins, and it helps them maneuver at really high temperatures.
Oh, right. Okay, that's really interesting. So how much of cobalt is in Greenland?
So this, I mean, the deposits are significant in general, and then you would also find these there. These are magnets, essentially.
Is it true that Greenland is home to sort of 70% of the world's rare earth?
Yes.
And much of it untapped?
Untapped,
yeah.
Yes, untapped.
So who currently can access that? Can the United States? You need icebreakers, right?
Well, icebreakers and some sort of modern technology to mine it, and of course the conditions are really difficult, so I'm not sure about the ability to mine it now.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that they would like to be working on. But there are more reasons for the Greenland being significant. It's part of the sort of Dom-Roh doctrine, and staying outside of the that space of having China and Russia engaged close to the United States, but it's also the entire Arctic Ocean area between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK.
Yes, so I read this today. So apparently, one good thing of climate change is that good thing or bad thing is up to your own judgment, but there's ice caps melting around Greenland, which is creating a new passage, maritime passage from the Pacific to the Atlantic, which would cut passage times dramatically. Is that the case?
Oh, it would change the world, yeah.
Right.
The speed that you could actually take and ship things from Asia all the way to Europe and the Arctic and the United States would be significant. I mean, one of the great recipients of it would be Great Britain. In the north and Scotland, you would have good access points, and that would change the amount of time and the risk. But there's also some changes that are coming in terms of autonomous systems, icebreakers, nuclear submarines, and capabilities that we didn't have in the past. So the technological development does change that too.
So it could potentially be sort of Panama Canal Mark II? Or...
Absolutely.
Right, interesting. So there's so much going on here that we don't hear about in the sort of day-to-day rhetoric of Greenland. All we hear and see is President Trump and people saying, well, Trump's going to invade Greenland and he's going to send some F-16s over and the Navy SEALs are going to drop down and take it, and oh, isn't he a bad guy? But there is a lot to this that is never discussed. You've got the rare earth, you've got the maritime passage, which is opening up as well, you've got the strategic location for ballistic missiles and so on. Do you think that the president needs to do a better job of communicating to the world, not least his own voters, about why this is so important? Because as far as I can see, it's not quite clear what he's up to.
So I think he sees an opportunity, because of who he is, to do this right now and get it on people's radar, and he tends to do things that are kind of shocking. So, and if you notice that people catch up a little bit later, but first rip the Band-Aid off and then see what happens. And well, I won't take a guess on what he is thinking here, but certainly he wants Greenland.
Okay, here's a question for you. Do you think he would ever really invade Greenland with the US military, a hostile takeover?
I
can't see it. I think it would
can't see it. I really
I'm
can't.
happy to eat my hat, but I just cannot see. That is new levels of insane. I know he gets accused of, being brash and doing things that surprise people, but for me, that's just levels out of this stratosphere.
I can't see it being necessary. I think instead he'll be persuasive. First he'll put pressure, economic pressure, right? And then he'll make the evidence clear. I mean, it's between the Russians' submarines that are in the Arctic now, the unexplored areas of the Arctic up at the North Pole that are contested at the moment, and then these mass oil reserves. So yes, as things warm up, we don't know what's going to be there, but we know it's a fight.
Interesting. And I love your point as well about the cobalt. Is that how you pronounce it, the cobalt?
Yeah, samarium cobalt.
Samarium cobalt. And it's used in...
hypersonic weapon systems.
Particularly
in
the fins.
That's right. In Tomahawks too. But we have materials that we can use, but hypersonics are just too hot.
Wow. Great stuff. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Kate. And hopefully we get you back in the studio soon. I'm sure this story will drag on. That's Kate Jones, geopolitical expert. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Let us know what you think about that. I'll get to your comments in just a tick. For the time being, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories dropping here in America. Iran's supreme leader has accused Donald Trump of being responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 protesters, labelling the president a criminal. And what's interesting about that is not the fact he's accused Trump of killing them, it's the admission that thousands of protesters have indeed died. Elsewhere, this side of the pond, in Minneapolis, the federal judge, or a federal judge rather, has restricted immigration agents' tactics following protests and thousands of arrests, barring them from arresting or pepper spraying peaceful demonstrators. Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey are being investigated over an alleged conspiracy to impede federal immigration agents. Attorneys for Tyler Robertson, elsewhere, Charlie Kirk's alleged killer, the assassin, are attempting to remove state prosecutors from the case, arguing a personal conflict taints the case against him. Elsewhere, a 22-year-old man from California has been charged in relation to death threats made against Vice President J.D. Vance during a family trip to Disneyland last summer. And breaking in the past few moments, Bloomberg is reporting that President Trump has told countries seeking to join his proposed Board of Peace, which includes a one Sir Tony Blair, by the way, that they'll have to pay $1 billion to be permanent members. Several countries are now working together to push back amid concerns the board could become a Trump-controlled rival to the United Nations, with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel already rejecting the proposals. And a plane has vanished near the Indonesian city of Makassar, triggering an extensive search operation after it lost contact with air traffic control. Locals reported hearing a loud explosion. Pretty concerning about that Indonesian plane as well. Reminds me of, was it MH? You're still here with me. MH47, 57? One that we're missing, just completely off the global map. Still ahead on the Late Show Live, I'll bring you the latest scenes outside the Iranian embassy in London. Protests against the Islamic Republic are gathering pace, and a devastating admission from Iran's supreme leader. This is the Late Show Live. Back in just a tick.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. Thank you for your says, gbnews.com/yoursay. I'll try and get through some now. John, hello John. John from Leicester, I think. Hope you're well, mate. You said, I hope Donald Trump doesn't give us 10% tariffs, Ben. We're suffering enough as it is with this Starmer government. I thought he understood what we're going through. I hope as well, John. I'm the last person to want to sort of cheer on Trump slapping us with tariffs. I'll maybe proved wrong, but the tariffs will come on February the 1st. I really don't think it will happen. And actually, I've asked the White House tonight, let me just see if they've replied. I've asked the White House, I've made the case to them and asked the question. Look, some people are saying that the UK only sent one British Army officer to Greenland as part of this NATO exercise with the Danes and the Swedes and the Dutch and so on. We sent one guy with a Nerf gun who got off a helicopter. And I'm kind of posing the question, as other people have today, will you exempt the UK from these tariffs, bearing that in mind? Does it matter about the volume of troops that have been sent to Greenland? Sheila, hello Sheila, good evening. You said everyone condemns Trump, but at the same time, they beg him for his help. PM, you said Trump, one man, world domination. And yeah, I think that's about it. John, you said the Yanks spent 20 years fighting in Afghanistan and still lost. What makes them think they can take over a Nordic country? Well, I mean, Greenland, as I said, I don't think they're going to take Greenland over militarily, but if they wanted to, I think they could do it probably quite easily. Thank you for those comments. Keep them coming in. I'll try and get to them as we continue. Let's move on. Iran's supreme leader has lashed out at President Trump, accusing him of being responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 protesters. I mean, that is extraordinary. Not extraordinary in the fact that he's accusing Trump of being responsible for the deaths. It's an admission from the Ayatollah that they have killed thousands of protesters, or thousands have at least died in the streets. So in a series of social media posts, despite a nationwide internet blackout, the Ayatollah accuses President Trump of being a criminal who fueled nationwide demonstrations. They previously said that it's a US Mossad operation on the streets of Iran. In response, the US president told Politico that, quote, it's time for new leadership in Iran. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the regime is looking to permanently sever itself from the global internet. And protests have also continued outside the Iranian embassy in London tonight, following clashes with police last night, which saw 14 arrests and multiple police officers injured. I will add to that, not just coppers injured, allegedly, also many protesters. The scenes and the pictures of people bloodied and bruised and slammed on the floor with their heads bleeding was a shock. And we also have some breaking news this evening as well, entering the GB newsroom. Channel 12, citing senior American officials, says that a US attack on Iran will absolutely happen and is only a matter of time, with Washington actively preparing for action. And GB News also understands the Iranian regime has been using chemical weapons on its own people, and I think that comes from a bit of bombshell information from Bill Ramble last night on Alex Armstrong's show, who has exclusive reports on the ground about citizens being exposed to some sort of toxic gas, potentially, which they then died from days later. That's still unconfirmed. We are trying to verify that. But in the meantime, joining me in Washington to discuss this is my panel, political commentator Hillary Fordwich and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith. It keeps saying Malbert there, Mally, but I'll
my
call...
full government name.
Yeah, well, as I said, if you keep behaving yourself, and I'll keep calling you Mally, otherwise we'll go to Malbert. Hillary, what's your take on what we've seen in Iran so far? Another big question, we're talking about Greenland. Will the US invade Greenland? Will the US strike Iran?
Well, with regard to Iran, what I would like to know is all the feminists, especially all those in the Democratic Party in the US,
Why are they so silent now? You see women in the streets there, so brave, taking off their hijabs, throwing them on bonfires, burning them, and we have silence from the feminists. So I think that's actually a shame, it's hypocritical, and it's pitiful. And I think that those who have had their lives saved, particularly that 26-year-old who was going to be hanged, and so purportedly 800 others that were going to be hanged, that President Trump has now saved them. They have their lives saved by him, and I hope they're grateful for the rest of their lives. Will we go into Iran? I don't think we'll ever have boots on the ground, but given that the Ayatollah has been, and their regime have been not only detrimental to human rights, detrimental to the West, the Persian people were very Western-oriented, and Iran was a thriving nation before this takeover about 47 years ago with the deposition of the Shah. So I think this is great news. I just wish all those feminists in the West would stand up and hear their voices heard and stand with those women of Iran.
Yeah, well said. The exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi was in Washington yesterday.
Yes.
I asked him a question about why it's in Britain's interest for the regime to fall. He said what we all know pretty much, which is there are Iranian sleeper cells all over the West.
Everywhere.
MI5 Mali have said that in the past recent years they foiled 20 Iranian terror plots in the UK. So, I mean, would you agree it's in everyone's interest, the West's interest, for this regime to fall?
I mean, I think it's in everyone's interest that we have a new Iranian government. They're a pariah that, funds attacks on the West. They destabilize the region. The question to me, though, is what happens after a strike? What happens after we topple the Iranian regime? Let's say we go in there and we do a strike that we think can topple the regime, which if we decide to do that, militarily, we are the best in the world, so that's something we'd be able to accomplish. The days and weeks after, the months and years after, what does Iran look like? We've seen this with Iraq, with Afghanistan, with Syria, that regime change is inherently messy. The first days are the best. You have the folks on the ground who are cheering because it's a terrible regime falling. That's great.
Yeah.
But are they prepared to create a government after that? And the other thing that worries me about this, though, is even though I'm hesitant on, what does regime change look like, I'm also hesitant what Iran might do with an existential threat to their leadership. You got to think the leaders in Iran are looking at this and say, if we fall and we lose power, this means we're going to get killed, right? So you have these folks on the ground who they're going to do everything they can to remain in power, which unfortunately for the people of Iran means killing, citizens and just brutal tactics.
Or they can go to Russia and play Scrabble with Assad.
Reports suggest tonight that around 17,000 Iranians have been killed on the streets of Iran, which is horrific. Reem Ibrahim, you're down the line in London. Thanks for sticking with us. What's the latest that you've seen outside the embassy in London tonight? It was kicking off majorly last night. Any update this evening?
Well, we've almost certainly seen more people protesting, and it seems as though those numbers keep getting bigger and bigger. We have seen many women actually outside of the embassy protesting, talking about this in this particular instance. I think what's fascinating is the focus on the very people that are losing their lives, the incredible bravery. Can we just focus on that for a moment? The absolute incredible bravery of the Iranian people that are out there on the streets, fighting for their freedom, fighting for the future of their country. I'm particularly interested by the specific names that we've talked about. People like Rubina Amanian, who is 23 years old, the same age as me, and was shot dead in the head on the streets of Iran by the Iranian police. So it's really rather abysmal, the situation that we're in at the moment. I think what's interesting is this is almost certainly a regime on its last legs. We are seeing them effectively scramble to survive, and I think that what has been said on the panel already is absolutely true. In the UK and, of course, in the rest of the world, there are people shouting freedom for Iran. They are showing their solidarity with those people that are so extraordinarily brave, fighting for their country and fighting for liberty. I am so abhorred by what has happened. I think that the sort of 18,000 or so people that have been also arrested and sentenced to death without trial also need to be talked about, because we're talking about an awful lot of people. This is almost certainly a regime on its last legs, and I hope and I think that many Iranians actually want the US to intervene. I know an Iranian based in London that has said the only way we will get regime change is if Trump gets involved, is if the United States gets involved. What's also interesting is this conversation about what happens next. What we don't seem to understand here is that the Iranian people are extraordinarily liberal. They have Western values. And I think that what is different about this than in any other situation, you know, if we were to liberate Gaza, for example, many of the people that live in Gaza have been brainwashed, are not very well educated. That is a very, very different situation in Iran. The Iranian people are very well educated. They understand what liberal democracy means and they want it.
Interesting. Yeah, Reza Pahlavi, the exiled crown prince who was in DC, he was saying yesterday, we are ready to take over. Not permanently. He said, look, I have a transition team in place. I will be the transition. We have a 200-page document which we will present to President Trump. We're ready to take over and bring democracy back to Iran. I mean, as you'd expect, he sounded pretty confident and he was quite organised with the press conference and so on, a big team around him. And from what I've seen on social media, maybe not the true litmus test of what Iranian people think, but just swathes and swathes of Iranians on social media saying, we want Reza Pahlavi. He says he's ready. Whether that's the case, we'll have to wait and find out. Reem, thank you very much. Stick with us. Go and grab a coffee and we'll be back with you fairly shortly. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. That is to ICE. Get the out of Minneapolis.
That guy there, Mr. Frey, is one of the most extraordinary and unintentionally hilarious people in US politics. I'll explain why shortly. He's also under investigation by the Department of Justice for allegedly impeding immigration officers from performing their duties as protests continue to take hold all across America. Also tonight. Breaking story tonight on the front pages of tomorrow's papers. I'll tell you why Robert Jenrick is apparently the self-styled new sheriff in town. That's at least according to a document that was found plotting his big media announcement for his defection. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I was just reading some of the funny posts on X that I'm receiving of me called a traitor, apparently, for saying I understand why President Trump wants Greenland. Very funny. It feels a bit like early 2021 when people were calling me and many others, like Bev as well, Bev if you're watching, a granny killer for refusing to get vaccinated. It feels like there's a lot of sort of lockstep in the response to what President Trump is trying to do, not a lot of wider thinking, shall we say. Anyway, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages of tomorrow's papers. My panel are here, Hilary Fordwich and Mally Smith, and Reem Ibrahim is also down the line in London. Reem, what did you want to start with? My producer's just told me in my ear, but I've got the memory of a goldfish. Is it the Mirror? Front page of the Mirror?
It is the Mirror, yes. So we've got Prince Harry's lonely trip home. So both Prince Harry and Prince William are in the United Kingdom. The King is also in the UK, but the King and Prince Harry are not going to be meeting, which I find fascinating because we've also got Prince William, who is over in Scotland, about 400 miles away, and Prince Harry is rather lonely this forthcoming trip. It's fascinating, isn't it? The relationship between Prince Harry and his father has really soured. We know that the last meeting they had lasted, what was it, about 40 minutes, if it was that? It's fascinating that the relationship has just broken down so significantly, and actually the fact that him and both Meghan also kind of have that relationship breakdown, the sort of way in which they have utterly embarrassed the royal family, I think quite frankly, the King is doing the right thing and saying, you know what, if you want to not be a part of this family, if you want to try and embarrass the royal family, then I will not meet with you.
But Hilary, I was of that persuasion, Reem, but Hilary, life is short. I've realised that. We're not here for a long time.
It is short, but I think it's actually, you're seeing the influence of the future King William here. Prince William actually is the one, I think, that's mainly behind this. He's the one with the spine. As we know, King Charles always refers to Prince Harry as my dear boy. And I think you're right, life is short, but one does not throw one's own family under the proverbial royal bus. One should not undermine and betray one's own family, let alone betray one's own nation, let alone badmouth the very people that have provided you with your actual living. And many people will say, well, you know, Prince Harry went through a tragedy and his mother died. I think it was dreadful, it was ghastly, but Prince William went through the same. Prince William is all about dedication to nation, duty, and so is Princess Catherine. And I think Prince Harry needs to realise he can't have his cake and eat it too. After all he's done, and he hasn't still apologised, and now he's suing the British press. And remember, what he wants the press for is to make all his money. So he's actually Harry the hypocrite. He's now at the bottom of the polls, the YouGov polls throughout the UK. He used to be next to the Queen Elizabeth, beloved Queen Elizabeth. He was at the top of all polling, and now he's at the very bottom, only above Prince Andrew, and deservedly so. He and Meghan have squandered the support they had from the British public. I covered their wedding, and they were 15 deep in the roads of Windsor.
I did as well. Were you there that day?
I was covering it for CNN and CNN
were you there in Windsor?
And all the things. No, over here in the US.
Oh,
I covered it for all the US networks, and they were 15 deep, as we know, in Windsor, and they squandered all of that support.
I stayed next to Harry's lodge at
really?
I won't say where it was, but the night before the wedding, and I was ended up drinking with a lot of his friends from Suits.
Oh, fantastic!
Which was interesting, to say the least. But you are right, there was lots of support for Meghan. Manny, the front page of The Sun, I remember the next day, because I was working the day before, it was a big double-page spread. It said Kistery, new sort of modern monarchy, lots of diversity.
And they were also going to be there for the Commonwealth, and they've squandered that too.
Yeah. Manny?
I mean, I just find it so interesting as an American to watch and listen to you guys talk about the British royal family. Like, do they serve a purpose other than you guys to gossip and be unhappy about them?
Absolutely.
History. Right, let's ask Reem. Reem, what is the purpose of the monarchy?
Other than us rebelling and, you know, taking
The
our
monarchy
democracy? What's
provides...
the point of
more
this?
fascinated with them than we even are.
Let's talk about what the royal family does for us. The royal family provides stability, it provides a constitutional monarchy, there is obviously the legal aspect to it. If you understand sort of the way in which British history has sort of shaped our relationship with the royal family has significantly changed. We've got a constitutional monarchy. The royal family provides an absolutely astounding amount of stability, but also a family that the rest of the country can look up to, can smile, can see exactly what the Queen or the King is able to do and ensure that actually this country is a great one. I love the royal family. My least libertarian opinion as a libertarian actually is that the royal family is absolutely fantastic, and I think that those people that are Republicans don't truly understand the value of what it means to be British and what it really means to love the royal family.
I hear you, but as an American, it's just very novel to me. But you guys are right. Americans do love the royal family in gossiping and talking about it and seeing what's going on with you guys. Yeah. But it doesn't fascinate me as much as some of my fellow
immense amount of soft power. And remember, there were more Americans actually that watched Princess Diana's wedding, Princess Diana's funeral, and watched each of the royal weddings than actually people in the UK. And remember,
there's more people in the US.
Well, yes, but I mean, I'm telling you, this is a fascination with Americans. And remember, as an American once said to me, we have all the pomp and circumstance without paying for it.
Can we look at the front page of the Daily Star very quickly, Reem? Lucy Letby, it's an exclusive. She reckons, again, it's the Daily Star, so I'll take it with a pinch of salt, but she reckons that she could be released by the end of the year, which is, I mean, sounds insane. The former nurse who's serving a whole life term for killing 7 babies and trying to murder 7 more reckons her convictions may be quashed within months. Reem?
It's absolutely insane. I mean, I am almost certainly not a Lucy Letby truther. She is certainly guilty. She literally wrote in her diaries, I am guilty and I did this. I'm a horrible person. Obviously she did it. Anybody that looked at the case in detail knows that she did it. What I find fascinating about all of this, Ben, is that in the UK, we cannot tell the difference between normal levels of NHS care and a literal serial baby murderer. That's how bad the NHS actually is.
I will say, my eldest boy, Jude, my sweetheart boy, he was 6 weeks early when he was born 6 years ago, and the special care unit in Sussex were great. They were superstars. But yeah, I take your point. Also, Letby, apparently, I said the same as you about the notebook. Apparently, she wrote that as part of a psychotherapy session, and that is some sort of process, apparently, where you write down your worst fears or something. Anyway, that's the defence of that. Reem, thanks very much for that. Stick with us in the next hour. You'll be back with us. Hilary, you'll be with us as well, of course, and Mally. We're not going anywhere. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a grey and murky start to the day, some fog rather slow to clear in places, and quite a cloudy Sunday on offer, some spells of rain, though we are likely to see a little bit of brightness later. Spells of rain across southwest England, southern parts of Wales. This will slowly shift its way northwards, pushing into central and northern parts of England through today. Perhaps a little bit brighter across the far north of Scotland, Northern Ireland, also parts of Sussex and Kent and East Anglia, maybe even some sunshine later on, but for most it's going to be quite a cloudy and dull day, feeling quite chilly under the cloud too, but highs reaching around 11 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Now, to finish off the day, remaining fairly similar, there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog, also some spells of rain still across parts of Scotland, though a little clearer across the far north. That's where temperatures are going to be dipping away, so once again, another frost and possible icy stretches here. A few more clearer skies across Northern Ireland, but a very different story elsewhere across England and Wales. Still very cloudy with some spells of rain, and it's likely we'll see a return of some foggy conditions through the overnight period. Also some spells of rain still across England and Wales. This will fizzle away through the overnight period, and then another band of rain starting to push into Northern Ireland through the early hours of Monday. Now we'll see a mix of cloud and also some clearer skies, and while we see those clear skies persist, that's where it's going to be turning chilly, dipping below freezing across parts of Scotland, so widespread frost here, but for many towns and cities remaining around the mid-single figures. Now for the start of the new working week, once again a very cloudy and grey picture. Some fog slow to clear through the course of the morning. Some slight drizzly outbreaks across England and Wales, with the most persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. A little bit breezy here at times too. Temperatures still rather mild across the south, highs reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Hope you're well. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
It's amazing, you know, the word, remember when I said tariff? My favorite word is tariff. True, but then I got a lot of heat from the fake news. Look at all of them back there.
President Trump turns on Britain. Shockwaves reverberate all across the UK tonight as Donald Trump unleashes his wrath, leaving a one Sir Keir Starmer squarely in the firing line. Accusing the UK and Europe of playing a dangerous game, the president imposes a new set of tariffs as retaliation for rebelling against his plans to annex Greenland.
We are not interested in being Americans.
Have Greenland to the Greenlandic and not for the United States.
It's MAGA, but this time it means Make America Go Away. Placards fill the streets in Denmark as protesters gather in opposition to President Trump's plans. But tonight, is the president the only leader who really gets it, who really truly understands what's at stake here globally? Also tonight...
We are devastated, we are heartbroken because we haven't heard from our family in Iran for like a week now. We don't know what's going on, if they're alive or not.
Protesters continue to gather outside the Iranian embassy in London tonight as the Islamic Republic's supreme leader lashes out at President Trump, get this, accusing him of being responsible for the thousands of deaths on Iranian streets.
Trump! Trump!
Anti-immigration enforcement demonstrations continue to rage nationwide in America, and now the Department of Justice has just taken a major step in response. Good evening, thanks for your company. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Hello, welcome along. Good morning to you. Joining me in Washington, D.C. tonight is my panel. Hillary Fordwich, the political commentator, and the Democrat strategist, Mally Smith. And live down the line in London, going through what's making the newspaper front pages tomorrow, it's the head of media at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. Hello, Reem. Right. Let's crack on with the main news this evening. President Trump has announced a 10% tariff effective from February the 1st on any and all goods sent to the US from Britain, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Finland. Basically all the nations who dared go to Greenland in recent days to perform a military exercise. That's in response, of course, to their rebellion against the US taking over Greenland for, quote, national security purposes. Taking to Truth Social this morning, President Trump in Mar-a-Lago in Florida, he woke up, he grabbed his phone, and he posted on Truth, "It's time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it. Only the United States of America, under me, President Donald J. Trump, can play this game. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security and survival of our planet. Strong measures must be taken so this perilous situation ends. Tariffs will remain until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland." Tonight, the shockwaves, of course, are being felt from that statement. Lots of reaction from our political leaders in Blighty. Sir Keir Starmer's described the action as completely wrong, adding, "Our position on Greenland is very clear. It's part of the Kingdom of Denmark and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. Applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration." Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, she weighed in as well, saying President Trump is completely wrong to announce tariffs on the UK. People in both the UK and the US will face higher costs and it will be a burden for businesses all across the country. The future of Greenland should be decided by Greenlanders. I agree with Keir Starmer. Nigel Farage also agreeing with Starmer and Badenoch, saying we don't always agree with the US government and in this case we certainly don't. These tariffs will hurt us. If Greenland is vulnerable to malign influencers, then have another look at Diego Garcia. A little nod there to the Chagos Islands. And of course, Ed Davey needed no invitation, did he? He said Starmer's US policy lies in tatters. Trump is now punishing the UK and NATO allies just for doing the right thing. Time for the PM to stand firm against the bully in the White House and work with European and Commonwealth allies to make him back down from this reckless plan. Interesting, isn't it? I said in the past hour, suddenly everybody cares about borders and British taxpayers being stung in the wallet. Joining me is my panel in Washington. Hillary Fordwich, Mally Smith and Reem is down the line. And Hillary, I know we discussed this in the last hour, but just remind viewers who are just freshly tuning in, maybe from a boozy night out on a Saturday night on the town, what's your reaction to this?
Well, first of all, this is what I always say. Could you imagine saying to a British taxpayer, French taxpayer, Danish taxpayer, Norwegian taxpayer, we want you to pay 3%, 5% of your tax dollars, your GDP, to support and protect the US southern border? They'd say, what? That's absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, the US taxpayer has actually funded NATO. The US really is the backbone of NATO. So what is this about? This is all really about security. And President Trump is right. Basically, Denmark has Greenland has 2 dog sleds to protect Greenland. This is an issue of national security, not for just the US or the Greenlanders, for the West. And it's very, very important. When you look now at the icebreakers, they don't have icebreakers even in Greenland. And it's not just national security for the West. It is also all about the natural resources there, the rare earth minerals that Denmark has failed to actually leverage, exploit, and to the benefit of Greenlanders. So last but not least, supposedly about 92% of Greenlanders, as we saw on the clip there, they want to make America go away. But I wonder if they were offered about 100,000 to maybe it's purportedly $500,000 each to be part of the US, would they say yes? Plus jobs, jobs, jobs.
I think 100k is a bit low, but Mally, there's some polling, isn't there, out tonight?
Well, there's polling that Americans don't want this, that Greenlanders don't want this. We know our European allies don't want this. And as an American taxpayer, it just begs the question, what are President Trump's priorities? We had President Trump's agriculture secretary come out and she was talking about rising food costs. She told the American people that one way they can have a cheap meal is they can have a meal of one piece of chicken, one piece of broccoli, and a tortilla. We have the agriculture secretary.
Sounds like me on a diet.
We have exactly.
You, actually.
President Trump will need to pay for people's Ozempic if that's what he wants them to eat. But look, you have the ag secretary saying that Americans should eat one piece of tortilla, one chicken, and one piece of broccoli. And it is estimated that it's going to cost $700 billion to buy Greenland.
Yeah.
We have former officials of the Trump administration talking to NBC saying that it will cost $700 billion, yet they're telling Americans we have to eat one piece of broccoli. Give me a break.
Yeah, interesting context. I think in the grand scheme of things, 700 billion is probably a drop in the ocean for the strategic location of Greenland.
Close to $1 trillion, Ben.
What's your national debt? It's about 1% of your national debt. I mean, you've been spaffing money up the wall like it's going out of fashion. So, hey, Greenland,
true.
I'd go for it. With me to discuss this further is foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and friend of the show. Sarah, nice to see you. I hope you're well. What's your take on all this absolute chaos?
Yes, Happy New Year to you and viewers back home. Still January, so I can get that in there. But can you believe it's only January? Look at the fight that has erupted between Europe and Greenland. And as you said, you know, you've got Europe and Greenland and President Trump reviving this claim, right, that the United States could take Greenland. And Ben, I'm not far from the Pentagon. The US hasn't ruled out using military force to do so. And that's really important because we are seeing this standoff moving from rhetoric to reality, with President Trump firing the first shot, and it's an economic one. So the UK, among those 8 countries, as you said, that are now facing the 10% tariffs that President Trump has threatened that will come into effect on February 1st. That will happen and will rise further in June to 25% if President Trump says there aren't negotiations over the United States taking Greenland. Now, Europe has reacted with fury. You mentioned there the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer wading into this, calling it completely wrong. But President Trump, we know, the administration, we know, are very serious about this. You've had senior aides, and I heard one of your panelists there talking about the fact and criticizing openly what they say is Denmark's inability to defend the territory. President Trump, again, in that post where he announced the tariff threat, he has reiterated his claims that this is about US national security, and he again invoked the threat from the likes of China and Russia. Well, where does this leave everyone? European leaders, they're going to be holding, Ben, a meeting, an emergency meeting on Sunday to discuss the response. Very difficult, right? Because we've seen that Europe isn't always united when it comes to responding to issues like this. Some European countries would be far more affected than others by any tariffs if they did come into force, and Trump knows that. So it's a canny move from the president, as he calls himself the tariff king. We know he's very fond of these tariffs. He's felt that they've been successful for him in the past. And Ben, it's left Europe scrambling, and the UK scrambling for a united response here.
Yeah, I guess one thing it has done though, Sarah, is it's united Europe. Not just the politicians who have all come out singing from the same hymn sheet, condemning President Trump, some stronger than others. Keir Starmer's been accused of being a little bit lacklustre compared to the likes of Emmanuel Macron in their statements, but also on the streets of Denmark as well. Mali, who was just here, referencing polling saying most Americans aren't in favour of, well, certainly not military intervention. I think it's something like 70%. But also lots of Danes taking to the streets of Copenhagen tonight with placards saying MAGA, not Make America Great Again, but Make America Go Away. So if one thing President Trump has done, he seems to have united Europe, both politically and sort of culturally, I guess, amongst its citizens.
Yeah, and Ben, you know, for our viewers back home in the UK, I think a lot of people would be very fair to ask, look, why does this concern us really? Greenland, it's pretty far away. This is a fight between Greenland, Denmark and America. Why are we wading into this? Why is Europe now getting threatened with these tariffs as well as the UK? The reasons are important. Like the top one for the United Kingdom is the economy, right? If the tariffs did come into force, that could have a pretty immediate impact. But the second one is that you've really got the UK very embedded when it comes to Arctic and NATO security. And listen to the messaging from both the UK and European leaders that they feel that this dispute over Greenland with America, the threat of possibly using military force, but now the very real threat of tariffs and economic might being used to force the transfer of territory of a NATO ally. Well, leaders have said that that is staring down potentially the end of NATO. It jeopardizes the NATO alliance. Those are really, really serious words. And so that's why you've seen such concern from the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, from the likes of Nigel Farage and our politicians at home, and from leaders across Europe, and expect a pretty strong statement tomorrow from the European leaders. We're all going to be looking, I think, to see what that response is, because Ben, you're right? They've all come out singing from the same hymn sheet on this issue. But we know President Trump, he doesn't care for moral arguments or strongly worded statements. What he responds to is action. So what action is Europe going to be willing to take over Greenland to defend Greenland? Potentially, we've already seen a number of countries, including the UK, sending troops to Greenland. Now, that is for NATO. It's for NATO exercises. Not unusual in itself, right? But this moment, this politically tense moment where you've got this escalating standoff, it's obviously been seen by many here in Washington as a fairly provocative move. And you can see the response from the White House and President Trump in that statement today. Tariffs, he's warned, could be coming if they don't get negotiating.
Yeah, great stuff, Sarah. I don't think we'll get military action, and I also don't think, if anyone cares, I don't think we'll even get the tariffs on February the 1st either. I think this is Trump just trying to turn the screw. Well, Sarah, look, you'll buy the Pentagon, so if you see those infamous pizza places getting loads of customers and loads of delivery drivers coming in and out and delivering some margaritas and pepperonis to the Pentagon, let us know, because it may be that that America's sending Chinooks and some Black Hawks to Greenland. You never know. Thank you, Sarah.
I've got
Appreciate
my eyes on the
Sarah
Pentagon. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Sarah. Right, gbnews.com/your say. I've got some comments here. Where are we? Madeline. Hello, Madeline. This is interesting. You said, hello, Ben. I've arrived in Bangkok. And last night, local time, waking up this morning, looked at the TV list of channels, and it was GB News. I immediately put it on and saw your lovely face. Oh, thank you. And beaming out from my room, just gone 7 a.m. local time. I'm glad to see that GB News and The Late Show Live is in Bangkok, Madeline. Have a good time. Bangkok actually is one of my favourite cities in the world, maybe #1. Right, more of those in just a sec, but still ahead on The Late Show Live. Protests against the Islamic Republic continue to gather pace. That follows the devastating admission from Iran's supreme leader that President Trump, of all people, is responsible for the deaths of protesters on the streets. No breaks in this hour. Back in just a sec. Right, anti-ICE protests have continued in Minneapolis today as a federal judge restricts immigration agents' tactics following protests and thousands of arrests. So the judge today has basically barred them from arresting or pepper spraying peaceful demonstrators. I'd also like to know what defines a peaceful demonstrator. If somebody's got a whistle in my ear or a big megaphone in my ear, potentially damaging my hearing, that's not very peaceful to me. Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, two very masculine men, are being investigated over an alleged conspiracy to impede federal immigration agents. Democrat Governor Walz, who of course was Kamala Harris's running mate last year, the year before now, 2026, has bullishly defended himself on X, accusing the Trump administration of, quote, weaponizing law enforcement. My panel are here: Hillary Forbich, Maddie Smith. Maddie, what is the definition of a peaceful protest? Is whistling in your ear or megaphone peaceful?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I certainly couldn't say the question legally of what is considered peaceful or not, but I mean, I think there's the bare minimum of, like, don't do anything physical. On the question, though, of President Trump announcing investigations into Walz and into the mayor of Minneapolis, this just fits a long line of the Trump administration turning policy disagreements into lawfare. This is just a short list of people that he has announced investigations or he wants to investigate. Fed Governor Jerome Powell, Fed Chair Lisa Cook, Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Slotkin, Senator Adam Schiff, Representative Eric Swalwell, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Special Counsel Jack Smith, Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, James Comey, Leetta James, John Bolton. So it is part of a larger tactic here. I don't think, though, the court is going to look fondly on it, just because the court usually, in political disputes between the branches, this being a state government versus the federal government, they usually just say, you guys figure it out.
I hear you, and I agree.
Do I need to read the list again?
No, I agree. I agree. It looks like Trump is on a vengeance mission. But can you blame the guy? They impeached him, they tried to jail him, some nutters tried to kill him twice, probably more times that we don't know about. They tried to put him in the slammer for life. They arrested him on stupid documents charges that Joe Biden himself was guilty of doing. Why wasn't Joe Biden impeached and arrested for that? Can you blame the guy? From a human perspective, can you blame him? For years, they debanked him, they debanked his kids, they went after his business.
Look, I'm sure he has, in his mind, a lot of legitimate grievances, but the thing about being the U.S. president is you should put your legitimate grievances behind and you should focus on what's best for the American people.
Your lot
like
started
the Democrats
that.
did?
The Democrats started that nonsense. Trump even got stick from his own MAGA base after the first term in 16. Do you remember during the election, everybody was like, lock her up, lock Hillary Clinton up.
Yes.
Trump gave grace to Clinton and said, okay, we don't do that in politics. We don't go after lawfare and behave like that.
Despite acid washing 40,000 emails.
It was your lot that started it.
But you're going back to the 2016 election and you're saying it's your lot that started it. It was the
in 2020.
It was the Trump campaign that famously made the lock her up chant part of their rallies. And then
but my point is he didn't follow through, did he?
Well, he didn't follow through.
He won the election and didn't follow through because he said that's not how we do things here. And it was Obama who spied on his campaign as well.
Here's the thing, though. You're missing a key aspect here. It's not because he had some grace from God and said, I don't want to do this. It's that he doesn't. No, it's that he doesn't have the ability to, because there are no charges that they can bring. Anytime the DOJ has brought, Comey's investigation was thrown out. We've seen multiple investigations that are brought to the fore and they're thrown out by the court because they're not legitimate. Trust me, if President Trump could have executed his lock her up chant, he would have.
Okay, well, the fact of the matter is, Hillary, they started it. Sorry to sound like a schoolboy in a playground, but the Democrats started it.
Well, they did. And as to Maddie's list, what I would say is I wouldn't care if the list was doubly long if they're all legitimate, actually, issues. And I would say when you look into each one of these cases, you can say, well, they can be ruled out, but who actually appointed the judges? A lot of the judges were actually democratically appointed. So I think it depends on the judge.
Oh, Soros judges and DAs as well.
Yes, exactly. No, to your point, you're totally right there. And I think the most important point here is who actually isn't, what do they say, if you haven't sinned, who's the one that's going to cast the last stone? I think that, let the innocent person put up their hand, but I think there is culpability. I think these are legitimate cases because there's due cause in each of the instances. We'll see how the court rules, but let's see what persuasion the judges are.
It's funny how aggrieved the far right can be when they control.
Far right? Who are you calling far right? Me?
Look, this whole conversation, you're talking about all these forces out against the Trump administration and MAGA folks.
Think about Nixon was impeached
I know.
for Watergate, and then Obama spied on Trump, and nothing happened to him.
I know this is a MAGA media safe space, but I am trying to say something real quickly, and I do love debating two people at once. Look, all I'm saying is this, that you have control of the Congress, you have control of the presidency. You're talking about judges. The majority of the Supreme Court, it's firmly 6-3 conservative. You also have the majority of the judges in the U.S. have been appointed by Republicans.
It is now, yeah.
So you're saying it's this big, huge conspiracy. You control every lever of power, and they haven't been able to execute.
It's not me. It's not my country.
Not the judges,
I'm a Brit.
Not the courts,
you seem to be very passionately defending one side, so don't play that game when I actually start refuting you to say it's not part of your country.
Not the judges.
Then you don't have to defend Trump at every turn.
Well, I mean, Trump, I will call out, again, this is an interesting topic. I will call out Trump when I think he's done wrong. But I'm saying, yes, I've agreed with you. Yes, I think he is on a vengeance mission. Yes, he is using lawfare to go after the people who have done him wrong. I'll admit that. But I'm saying, from a human perspective, can you blame him? Because you lot started it. You tried to debank him. You tried to jail him. You impeached
and
him.
His family.
You tried to. I mean, some people, some crazed leftists tried to kill him.
Don't throw in.
Not just him, by the way. Not just him. His family. His sons.
And I have one thing I disagree with Trump, and it's not this actual issue we're talking about here. But when he said about Greenland, he said just because a few hundred years ago they had boats that went there and they claimed that land. Well, that accounts for the U.S. too. So that I disagree with him on that.
Well,
there you go.
I'm glad to hear there's one thing you guys disagree with Trump on. It takes so long to get there, my God.
What about, very quickly, Tim Walz and Jacob Frey? Just to explain, Mally, for our British viewers, Tim Walz, of course, was Kamala Harris's running mate in the election in 24. Why do they call him Tampon Tim? But also, Jacob Frey, who is he?
He is the mayor of Minneapolis.
And why is he so controversial amongst the right?
Well, I mean, he has taken a strong tactic, he's taken strong language in regards to ICE.
Expletives.
He's also... we have the whole issue with Somali fraud that's also being centered in Minneapolis. So there's a lot of things currently, like lightning rod issues that are happening that he is involved in. So he's currently a boogeyman for the Trump administration.
Okay, we have a clip of the man himself. Let's take a quick look.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is this was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying.
Jacob Frey or Jacob Fry?
I think it's Frey.
Frey. Jacob Frey talking about the killing of Renee Good, the anti-ICE protester. But that guy, Hillary, he's particularly sort of funny. He's a bit of a walking meme on social media because he dances with the Somalis. He speaks Somali, doesn't he?
Right.
He addresses Somali communities in Minnesota in their Somali tongue. I'm not sure what the name of the language is.
Of course, because he wants their vote.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very strange guy actually as well. I mean, people call me strange, fine, but that guy's strange.
No, because he wants their vote.
Yeah. Right, more comments very quickly. Bob, you said, "Hiya, Ben. I've had to get up as just recovering from a hip operation." Oh, me too, Bob. 6 years ago, I had my hip done. And don't really get the opportunity to watch, but yes, smooth as ever. Just as on the latest, I'm confused as everybody else, but it's all just a distraction from what's really happening, i.e. Venezuela, Iran, and more importantly, Blair worming his way back in. Let's talk to the founder of Global Security and Investigative Services, Dean Golemis. Dean, thanks for your company tonight. When are we going to see an end to these tensions and protests with regards to ICE all across the country? Will they ever end?
I think they're going to. Thanks for having me, first of all. I believe they're going to end once politicians turn the rhetoric down. Everybody's talking about the courts, how this case will end in court, the judges will throw it out. All that's been announced is there's an investigation. An investigation is what? It's a fact-finding mission to determine if there's criminality involved in these organized ICE protests in which they're obstructing ICE agents from doing their job. I think we all can agree that there is an organized conspiracy to obstruct ICE agents from performing their duties in the city of Minneapolis. Whether Tim Walz or Mayor Frey is part of that conspiracy, I mean, that's what this investigation is going to determine. But there most certainly is a conspiracy to obstruct ICE agents. And remember, obstructing a federal officer is a crime. conspiracy to obstruct one by organizing and using telecommunications to move personnel and people to block roadways and obstruct ICE's progress through a community is illegal. And I hope some people get arrested. And, you know, I think once the rhetoric's turned down, once a few key players are arrested for conspiracy, which there's most certainly a conspiracy going on, I think you'll see this toned down. But I believe Tim Walz and Mayor Frey want this to go on. Why? It distracts from the massive $9 billion fraud that's going on and being investigated. That whole conversation's been put on the back burner here, and I believe that that's the bigger crime. Let's see what politicians were involved in that and who benefited directly from it.
So you're referencing there the great work by, what's his name? Is it Tim Shirley? Nick Shirley, who exposed the Somali daycare centre fraud, up to, billions and billions of dollars of empty daycare centres, children not in attendance, they're just empty, yet the government is paying them tens of millions of dollars, just obscene amounts of money. It's basically a scam. And the situation with Tim Walz particularly is that he is now being investigated by the Department of Justice, Dean, for what? For knowing about it or accused of facilitating it?
I believe just for shirking any kind of responsibility for overseeing it, just I believe basically incompetence, which again is not a crime, but a great embarrassment to him, such a great embarrassment. He decided not to run for re-election. He withdrew his campaign. So there's something there. When there's smoke, there's potentially fire, and that's what these investigations will find out. Investigations are fact-finding missions to determine criminality when there's some kind of suspicion. I believe $9 billion fraudulently spent is suspicious enough to launch an investigation.
Okay, last question to you, Dean. I don't know if you know the answer, but last year, of course, in just 12 months of President Trump's first year in charge, they said goodbye to around 2.4 million illegal migrants, courtesy of ICE. Around 600,000 forcibly removed by ICE, and the rest they voluntarily left after being pressured, basically. Some offered $1,000 to leave, they get a free flight home, the chance to come back legally if you reapply. Will that be ramped up this year, do you think? Do you think they'll exceed the 2.4 million we saw last year?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know how many voluntarily went as opposed to how many were forcibly removed. I think this year for sure the number forcibly removed will most certainly be higher. And again, the collateral damage we're talking about, all the innocents, we'll call them innocents, that are being removed, are like the wives of the criminals. That could all be avoided in these sanctuary cities if the politicians would allow their law enforcement to enforce ICE detainers. These gentlemen, these immigrants, these illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, whatever you want to call them, they get arrested for a crime that's serious enough to, automatically generate a deportation order. They're in the county jail. They get an ICE detainer saying, don't release this guy. We're going to deport him because he's now a felon. They ignore that and let him go. It's the duty of ICE to then go into the community and locate this gentleman and arrest him pending deportation. That's federal law for time immemorial under Obama. Whoever you want to say, that's what happens. That's the system we have. Now, unfortunately, because they weren't arrested in jail, they're being picked up at home, so the wife, the kids, the grandmother are all going along with them because ICE must arrest them once they find them.
Yeah, big racket. Dean, thanks very much. Dean Guillemis, founder of Global Security and Investigative Services. Get this, viewers, listen to this. Immigration last year in the United States. The US experienced negative net migration for the first time in 50 years. The State Department revoked 100,000 visas and freezing visa processing for 75 countries and ending temporary protective status for thousands of Somalis. So 2.4 million illegals left, 600,000 forcibly removed, and the rest left. So the first time in 50 years. Could you imagine that in Britain? Negative net migration. It was only during the Cameron years. Do you remember when Cameron was talking about getting net migration down to the tens of thousands? We were talking about, what, 10, 20, 30,000? Now, a good year for net migration is down in the sort of 100,000s. That's a good year. So it just shows how far we've come and what's going on here in America as well. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories here in America. Iran's supreme leader has accused Donald Trump of being responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 protesters, labelling the president a criminal. That in itself is an admission from the Ayatollah that thousands of protesters have indeed died. Elsewhere, attorneys for Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, are attempting to remove state prosecutors from the case, arguing a personal conflict taints the case against him. In California, a 22-year-old man has been charged in relation to death threats made against Vice President J.D. Vance during his family trip to Disneyland last summer. And breaking in the past few hours, Bloomberg is reporting that Donald Trump has told countries seeking to join his proposed Board of Peace in Gaza that they'll have to pay $1 billion to be permanent members. So Tony Blair, of course, named last night on the show as being one of the members on the so-called Board of Peace. Several countries are now working together to push back on the £1 billion membership, or $1 billion membership, amid concerns the board could become a Trump-controlled rival to the United Nations, with Benjamin Netanyahu, even of Israel, already rejecting the proposals. And a plane has vanished near the Indonesian city of Makassar, triggering an extensive search operation after it lost contact with air traffic control. Locals reported hearing a loud explosion. Right, lots of you still getting in touch on your say. Apologies, I've not been able to get through a lot of them tonight. Where are we? Katzeb, you said the mayor of Minneapolis is supporting illegals. He's supporting Somalians who are committing huge fraud. He refuses to admit the ICE agent had a justified shooting of Renee Good, who tried to murder him. Mally, what's your take on the Somali situation in Minnesota? Is there massive fraud?
Well, there's certainly a fraud issue. I feel like one thing, though, that has gotten a little bit misconstrued is that they're acting like, especially folks on the far right, that the Biden administration didn't do anything about this.
Yeah.
We have 90 people who've been investigated. 62 of them were indicted under the Biden administration. So there was legal action taken against the Somali fraud during the Biden administration. The one thing, though, I would say that I think we should remember is just because some folks in the Somali community committed fraud, we shouldn't say every Somali is a terrible person, which we seem to like to do, unfortunately, on the internet.
That's fair enough.
That's my take.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Good point. Although it is widespread, I will say that. I mean, it seems to be, from Nick Shirley's great reporting, it does seem, institutional is not the right word, but I mean, there seems to be a prevalence for fraud amongst the Somali community. Alan has said, Ben, watching you every morning, 8:15 a.m. here in Vietnam. HCMC, that's the capital.
Vietnam.
Of Vietnam. The Vietnam capital. It's sorry, I should know this. Hanoi. Watching you in Hanoi. I think that's right. Keep up the great reporting and show. Alan, thank you for tuning in from Vietnam. Hope you're enjoying the baguettes.
That's where the helicopter was trying to take off from the end of the Vietnam War, that famous scene with them climbing onto the back of the helicopter.
Oh, sorry,
on the rooftop.
He's in Ho Chi Minh City. Sorry, apologies. Showing my Asian ignorance. Although Bangkok, as the previous contributor said, is my favourite city. And Jackie said, are you seriously asking about Tampon Tim? Just explain very quickly, Hillary, what is Tampon Tim? Tim Watts, why is he called Tampon Tim?
Tampon Tim, because he actually thought that there should be tampons in men's bathrooms, the whole trans silly issue where, you know, people have a deranged syndrome where they think that they're women. And of course, no man's ever needed a tampon, absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. But one thing with regard to Tim Walz, he's in a totally lose-lose situation. Either he totally knew about the fraud, or he's totally and utterly incompetent. Lose-lose situation. There is no other explanation. And there are obviously many of the whistleblowers who, by the way, have been absolutely horrifically penalised. Many of the whistleblowers, in fact, I think probably all of them, have said that he was totally and utterly cognizant. So he knew what was going on. He's part of this fraud. And like I say, he's in a totally lose-lose situation.
Okay, Mally's just given me $5 to read out this comment on your say.
I rarely get a nice comment on your say. We have to say a nice one.
Revolting?
He hasn't really. Do you want to read it, Mally? You read it.
You read it. You read it. It's a better validator if it's not me.
It's from Kevin Lewis. Kevin, thanks for your company. Thank you for staying up with the Late Show Live. You have said, I like Mally. He stays cool and patient when he's putting his points across. I wish some of the lefties in the UK did the same. I might actually listen to them if they did.
Thank you, Kevin.
Does that make you feel good?
It does. You know, the Yours Say, love them. I don't get the most positive reviews there, so when I do, we have to highlight it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I agree. I can stomach you. Let's just say that. And Tammy on Yours Say said, Ben, call it Saigon. Rob said, who the hell is Tampon Tim? Rob, I hope Hillary just explained. Tim Watts wanted to put tampons in boys' men's changing rooms, toilets. Anyway,
yeah.
There we go. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
And we want to see a little bit of freedom for these people. These people have been living in hell for a long time. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
Well, he's blowing hot and cold, President Trump, on Iran, isn't he? Today, the latest update is that he said it's time for a new leader in Iran. That's as he faces the wrath of the Ayatollah himself. More on that in just a sec. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a grey and murky start to the day, some fog rather slow to clear in places, and quite a cloudy Sunday on offer, some spells of rain, though we are likely to see a little bit of brightness later. Spells of rain across southwest England, southern parts of Wales. This will slowly shift its way northwards, pushing into central and northern parts of England through today. Perhaps a little bit brighter across the far north of Scotland, Northern Ireland, also parts of Sussex and Kent and East Anglia, maybe even some sunshine later on. But for most, it's going to be quite a cloudy and dull day, feeling quite chilly under the cloud too, but highs reaching around 11 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Now, to finish off the day, remaining fairly similar, there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog, also some spells of rain still across parts of Scotland, though a little clearer across the far north. That's where temperatures are going to be dipping away, so once again, another frost and possible icy stretches here. A few more clearer skies across Northern Ireland, but a very different story elsewhere across England and Wales. Still very cloudy with some spells of rain, and it's likely we'll see a return of some foggy conditions through the overnight period. Also some spells of rain still across England and Wales. This will fizzle away through the overnight period, and then another band of rain starting to push into Northern Ireland through the early hours of Monday. Now we'll see a mix of cloud and also some clearer skies, and where we see those clear skies persist, that's where it's going to be turning chilly, dipping below freezing across parts of Scotland, so widespread frost here, but for many towns and cities remaining around the mid-single figures. Now, for the start of the new working week, once again a very cloudy and grey picture. Some fog slow to clear through the course of the morning. Some slight drizzly outbreaks across England and Wales, with the most persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. A little bit breezy here at times too. Temperatures still rather mild across the south, highs reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Right, here's a big dollop of insanity and irony for you. Iran's Supreme Leader has lashed out at President Trump, accusing him, President Trump, of being responsible for the deaths of over 3,000 protesters on the streets of Iran. I mean, I knew they were mental. I didn't know they were that mental. In a series of social media posts, despite a nationwide internet blackout in Iran, the Ayatollah accused Donald Trump of being a criminal who fueled nationwide demonstrations. He previously, I think last week, said that Mossad and the US were behind the demonstrations. In response, the US president told Politico that it's time for new leadership in Iran. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the regime is looking to permanently sever itself from the global internet. Protests have also continued outside the Iranian embassy in London tonight, following clashes with police last night, which saw 14 arrests. Many protesters injured themselves. There was shocking footage of one, he wasn't quite elderly, but he was getting on a bit, bleeding from the head with his face slammed to the floor, courtesy of a copper. And also the Met Police said a few police officers were injured as well. And breaking tonight, Channel 12, citing senior American officials, says that a US attack on Iran will absolutely happen, and it's only a matter of time, with Washington actively preparing for action. GB News also understands the Iranian regime has reportedly, unverified, been using chemical weapons on its own people. Let's get the take now of senior Iran analyst Omid Memariam. Omid, thanks for your company. Just before we start anything else, can you verify or give us any more information on this report tonight that there are some sort of chemical weapons doing the rounds in Iran?
We have to be very careful about unsubstantiated reports, particularly when it comes to chemical weapons or unconventional weapons like this, because we have a history of using these type of claims to be proven wrong. And I think we have to be very, careful about this type of claims. But at the same time, we know that the rhetoric between President Trump and the Iranian Supreme Leader has been very harsh over the past 24 hours. And it's obvious that the U.S. is getting ready to do something, take some actions against Iran. U.S. carriers are coming from jet carriers is coming from China Sea to the Persian Gulf to the Middle East, and the U.S. Seems to be calculating what are the costs of a military attack against Iran. That's for a fact. Even though the President Trump said that Iranians stopped executing 800 people, even though he thanked them for what they have done, even though there is no reports of scheduling executing 800 people. At the same time, we know that President Trump promised Iranian people to support them, and even though it's too late for that, but all the indicators tell us that one major action coming from the U.S. Is basically on the way. And despite what you said about the chemical weapons and all that, I think the U.S. is going to, in some sort of way, respond to what has happened the past few weeks.
Yeah, and why do you think President Trump is blowing hot and cold? One minute he's saying to the protesters, don't worry, help is on the way. The next day he's saying, well, actually, I've heard that they've cancelled the executions, so, that sounds all right for now. And then, of course, today he responded to the Ayatollah by saying it's time for a new leader. Why do you think he is blowing hot and cold? Is that intentional, or is that just President Trump being Trump?
There is no hot and cold. Here's the core of this issue. Protesters in Iran, people, democracy seekers, freedom seekers, are never the focus of any country's foreign policy agenda. President Trump said that we are locked and loaded, we're going to support Iranian protesters. He didn't. It was supposed to deter the Iranian government to use violence against Iranian protesters. It actually accelerated the situation. Right now, we have a number of 12,000 people dead, so whatever happens, whatever President Trump does in the next few days, it's not going to help all those people who are killed. That's one thing aside. The U.S. and Iran, have many issues, and they are not friendly governments. There are so many grievances that the U.S. government has with the Iranian government. Chief amongst them is Iran's nuclear program, then it's Iran's missile program, Iran's proxy groups in the region, and many others. So we knew that in the past few months, the U.S. government is getting sick and tired of Iranians not negotiating, not coming with a solution how to deal with the situation. So they somehow neutralized Iran's nuclear program, but it seems that Israel and the U.S. are planning to do something with Iran, maybe about Iran's nuclear missiles program, but nobody knows about the details of it. But in general, what we are seeing is that something is going to happen in the next few days when U.S. carriers and aircraft carriers get to the Middle East.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks very much, Omid. Appreciate your company tonight. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. gbnews.com/your say. Glynis, hello Glynis, good evening to you. You've said, Ben, the Iranian man who was hit on the head by the Met, I think you're referencing to the protest in London, he was 70 years old. Jamie as well said he was 70. Yeah, in my book, poor bloke by the way, in my book that's not old. 70 is still pretty young.
Definitely.
Especially these days. You agree?
Definitely.
Yeah? Yeah, I think you can be in pretty good shape at 70. Let's have a reminder of the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, who was in Washington DC yesterday. I managed to ask him a question about why the fall of the Islamic regime in Iran was so important for not just Iran but for Britain too. This is what he said. Thank you. Ben Leo from GB News in London. We have lots of Iranian activity in the UK connected with the regime here in Iran, sorry. Why is it in Britain's interests and the West's for this regime to fall?
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked the question because, in fact, one of the topics that I raised in some discussions I had the last time I was in London with former prime ministers was exactly to explain to them the mapping of every instrument that the regime is using under Khamenei's direct supervision through so-called centers through which they antagonize British citizens and, of course, many of those sleeper cells that you indicated. It doesn't stop in England, by the way. They're in America as well. So we're trying to explain to various governments the whole methodology that the regime is using with assets they have on the ground in respective countries, not to mention money laundering that goes on in many countries, including in Great Britain. So there are many ways that they can push back against that and protect not only the citizenry of whether it's Great Britain or America, but in what way it connects to why we need to do that ultimately by putting an end to the regime. And one thing that is now becoming even more clear, and the fact that the regime could be threatening the world as a last gasp. We should not allow this regime to catch a second wind and be able to do further damage, which is why the strike is not just needed to help the Iranian people overcome this unfair disadvantage, but it's also one way to completely dismantle the regime's aspect of threatening and cut off the chain of income that it uses to fund all of these operations, including the sleeper cells, which is why I'm also calling for any means to cut off the lifeline to the regime, which is its revenue from whether it's oil exports or whatever other means of income that they have. We need to dry the well that funds terrorism once and for all against the Iranian people and the world.
So there we go, Mali. Have you got much of an opinion on this guy, the exiled Crown Prince?
Well, I mean, I agree with him that we need a new government in Iran. I'm a little skeptical, though. Someone who's been out of the country for decades would have the political and military support to potentially be, jettisoned in there and control the government. I mean, I hope he could, but that seems like a tall task.
He says he's got the support of the Iranians, which I guess, judging by social media, I mean, I've seen thousands of, videos even of them calling his name, calling for his return.
Yeah, but I mean, he hasn't lived there in decades. Like that's a tall task.
They've been chanting his name, and I will say, obviously, with his blood and his family and his history, he obviously has a dedication to want to see it a success. And don't forget, what the Ayatollah is doing right now is totally and utterly deflecting. Why? Because they presided over a failed nation. Don't forget, Iran was actually prosperous. And before the Shah fell, of course, there was a lot of corruption, and that has been a concern, obviously, with that family. But remember, they're basically Persians. They're more westernized, and they could be part of the West. They could be prosperous, and their people talk about affordability crisis in the US and what's going on in the UK. I mean, they're literally destitute, the Iranian people. They've been chanting his name, and I think he's better, certainly, than at least what people have been enduring in recent years.
Okay. Lynn, on your side, Lynn Maguire. Hello, Lynn. You said, I watched last night to see the police shoving the protesters against a wall with railings, using their batons to club people. This country has serious problems with two-tier policing. Why did they not show all this enthusiasm when the Palestine terrorist group or the Palestine protesters were out? Shameful. Yeah, I agree. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. This is a great story on the front page of the Mail on Sunday tomorrow. You'll see it when you go to get your papers tomorrow. Why Robert Jenrick is apparently, quotes, the new sheriff in town, or at least that's according to a document, a media document, that was helping him to plan his big defection. Back in just a sec. Right, my panel are still here, Hilary Forwich and Melly Smith, and also Reem Ibrahim, the head of media at the Institute for Economic Affairs in London. Reem, should we look at the front page of the Mail? What's going on with this Jenrick story? The headline reads, Jenrick's bizarre plot to be the new sheriff in town. What does he mean, the new sheriff? What's he on about?
This is absolutely hilarious. So, of course, we saw on Thursday, we saw that from sort of Kemi Badenoch's bombshell video that it appeared to be filmed on a webcam on her laptop. She said that she had actually had some evidence that proved that Robert Jenrick was going to be defecting to Reform, and so she sacked him and beat him to it. And, of course, a few hours later, he did defect to Reform. Now, this story on the front page of the Mail on Sunday is apparently they have been able to get access to the media documents that were sort of the media plan in order to prepare for Robert Jenrick's defection. And it reads that he was to be the new sheriff in town. He was the most popular Tory shadow cabinet leader in waiting if Kemi ever falls, and the most dynamic politician in the Conservative Party. It also says that Nigel Farage is clearly the only person in British politics to have been consistent, obviously right person to lead the charge. What's fascinating about this story is it does make Robert Jenrick and his team look ever so slightly incompetent. The entire fiasco on Thursday was absolutely insane, purely because Kemi Badenoch sacked him before he was even able to make that resignation speech. Perhaps if things had gone his way, this entire situation would look a bit better. I think that what this does show is the internal sort of ego that Robert Jenrick perhaps has. And so the question is, will Robert Jenrick and Nigel Farage actually get on in Reform? Or will Robert Jenrick not be happy being second in command? Will he want to be the leader, the one in charge, the man in charge, and not let Nigel Farage be that person? I think it's, only time can tell whether or not the bromance between Robert Jenrick and Nigel Farage will last. I think will be interesting in the time over the next few months, and also what this means for Kemi Badenoch and the Conservative Party. She now no longer has her key opposition in the party. She is the only thing the Conservative Party has. And actually, I think in some ways this means she can consolidate her power within the party and ensure everybody knows that she is the sheriff in charge over there.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just looking at some of these pages from this document that's been leaked. So first of all, Robert Jenrick's team say that this was authored by somebody working for him, not by him himself. So he's distancing himself from it. But some of the documents say, it says, so this is media advice for Jenrick ahead of his announcement and how to answer the press at this press conference. So one bit of the document says, you're the new sheriff in town, here to provide experience, a political heft to Reform's operation, so that the country can be fixed. Elsewhere, there's another answer to an anticipated question. The question would be something like, you're jumping ship to save your career, save your seat. And Jenrick is advised to answer, last time I checked, I was top of the brilliant Conservative Home Shadow Cabinet League table, so I seem to be doing all right. No, what I'm bothered about is the country, the mess we're in, blah, blah, blah. And another one said, you've said Nigel can't run the country, that he's only good for a pint. What's changed? And the proposed answer for Jenrick is written down, and it says, well, Nigel's still good for a pint. That's politics. So it's very cringeworthy, really.
It's very cringeworthy, but it's also a really fascinating insight into the way media and communications works in Westminster and the way in which so many politicians, of course, have quite large media teams, especially if you're on the shadow cabinet, and the way that they try and pre-prepare and plan for answers. I think it's fascinating whether or not Robert Jenrick... So I think what's interesting about this entire situation is it does show that Jenrick does, in some ways, want to climb the greasy pole. He wants to consolidate his power. He wants to be the top man. He wants power, and I'm really interested by this. I'm particularly not convinced. Robert Jenrick was only 5 minutes ago practically a Lib Dem, and I'm not sure he will be the right-wing leader in the party that we need.
Yeah.
The thing is though, that Jenrick has actually presided over the failure of Britain. That Britain is broken. He presided over all of that. But on the other hand, I will say I do think that a lot of traditional Conservatives will be swayed, those that haven't gone over to Reform. I think it will be very good for Reform. And also, don't forget, one of the criticisms of Nigel Farage has always been he's a one-man band. Will he be able to actually sort of front an entire leadership team? And so, of course, now he has part of a leadership team.
Do you know who Robert Jenrick is?
I've learned about them today, but I got to say, as someone who's worked for multiple elected officials and campaigns, it's never good when they get the talking points and the stage directions.
Yeah.
Multiple presidents have been handed note cards that they're supposed to internally read, and they read them out loud. My favorite is one time Biden got a note card and it said, "You sound angry," and he read, "You sound angry." So, yeah.
Oh, hilarious. Guys, thank you so much for your company tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Mally. Thank you, Reem, if you're still there back home in London. And thank you guys back home in Blythe and Vietnam and Bangkok and Australia and New Zealand. Lots of you emailing from all around the world. I'll see you again tomorrow night from midnight. Until then, have a good Sunday, sweet dreams, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a grey and murky start to the day, some fog rather slow to clear in places, and quite a cloudy Sunday on offer, some spells of rain, though we are likely to see a little bit of brightness later. Spells of rain across southwest England, southern parts of Wales. This will slowly shift its way northwards, pushing into central and northern parts of England through today. Perhaps a little bit brighter across the far north of Scotland, Northern Ireland, also parts of Sussex and Kent and East Anglia, maybe even some sunshine later on, but for most it's going to be quite a cloudy and dull day, feeling quite chilly under the cloud too, but highs reaching around 11 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Now, to finish off the day, remaining fairly similar, there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, some low cloud, perhaps even some fog, also some spells of rain still across parts of Scotland, though a little clearer across the far north. That's where temperatures are going to be dipping away, so once again another frost and possible icy stretches here. A few more clearer skies across Northern Ireland, but a very different story elsewhere across England and Wales. Still very cloudy with some spells of rain, and it's likely we'll see a return of some foggy conditions through the overnight period. Also some spells of rain still across England and Wales. This will fizzle away through the overnight period, and then another band of rain starting to push into Northern Ireland through the early hours of Monday. Now we'll see a mix of cloud and also some clearer skies, and where we see those clear skies persist, that's where it's going to be turning chilly, dipping below freezing across parts of Scotland, so widespread frost here, but for many towns and cities remaining around the mid-single figures. Now, for the start of the new working week, once again a very cloudy and grey picture. Some fog slow to clear through the course of the morning. Some slight drizzly outbreaks across England and Wales, with the most persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. A little bit breezy here at times too. Temperatures still rather mild across the south, highs reaching around 9 to 10 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin,